I feel like I read something a while ago that said home is anywhere you feel comfortable or something like that. So I guess it's wherever I make it.
Anywhere my children and wife are. For me, that's home.
It's where your community is. It's where you get a sense of belonging from.
The top 3 things I love about California is the weather.
I get to see the diversity of a whole bunch of different people.
It's gorgeous, and I want to stay. I plan to stay. You know, the cost of living here has been increasing.
I don't know how much money you got to make to be comfortable here.
Challenges that I face with the economy are just the cost of living. So most of the time it's living check to check.
I want to not constantly be anxious about if that house that I'm renting is going to get put on the market.
Many of my family members have left, but also just other Black people and people of color have left.
California Community Builders' work has always focused on making sure that we have enough housing for all people in California, especially people of color.
People for Housing is a housing advocacy organization for Orange County, California. We work on issues of access and production of affordable housing, middle-income housing, workforce housing, and first-time homebuyer housing.
We have not built enough homes for the number of people that want to live in California. And what that does is it drives the cost up of the homes that do exist and the homes that are built. So we see rising housing costs over the decades. We absolutely need to prioritize the fact that everyone in California and in the country should have a safe, affordable place to live, be it rental or home ownership. But one of the things we've also seen is that left out of the conversation is families that are sort of in the middle. And especially families that are lower middle income. They're not low income, so they are not necessarily struggling to keep a roof over their head, and they're definitely not rich.
Lower middle income and middle income Californians are the ones who are leaving California. Why? Because they're the ones whose quality of life is most improved by lower housing costs.
And so what we decided to do is really study the issue. And so my organization, California Community Builders, came out with a report in 2024 called California's Missing Middle. And what we did was we did a deep dive into this issue of who is middle-income California.
We know from the data that the lower middle-income segment of California's population is incredibly diverse.
60% of middle-income Californians are people of color. What the data doesn't give us is the stories of these people. You know, it doesn't show you their faces. It doesn't tell you who they are, where they come from, how hard they're working. We wanted to tell the story with real Californians that are living their lives, that are doing their best, and that are really attempting to thrive in California today.
Both of my parents were undocumented, and they actually met in an English class. And so I'm a product of, that American dream. But I remember both of my parents working all sorts of odd jobs. There was a period where both of my parents would wake up at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, I don't know how early. I feel like I had a pretty happy, normal childhood in Orange County. I grew up in an apartment complex that also had different immigrant families, and I was the first in my family to get a college degree.
I was born in Vallejo, but I grew up in Rodeo. We're a Filipino family, but we were definitely a little bit more Americanized than a typical Filipino family. Easygoing values. I feel like our real luxury was cable TV. My mom, she kind of had more retail work. My dad definitely had a very steady kind of paying job with a retirement plan and everything. I started through public school. I did kind of attend community college before transferring to a 4-year college where I got a bachelor's degree.
I've been doing nonprofit work for 20 years. I've lived in Oakland my whole life. I've been doing career coaching for about 7 years. Both of my parents died pretty young from substance abuse related issues. But I was lucky enough to have my father, Gordon Gibson, his sister, take me in. And it was rough, though. I was 16. There wasn't really anywhere for me to sleep. I came out when I was 14 as a lesbian, so being gay and That was a huge problem, actually, for my aunt. She was very religious. Life was so painful that love was the one, bright spot, right?
I am a civil associate getting my license to be a civil engineer. So I do design work, mostly for transportation projects. So that looks like I'm working on a highway design build. I'm working on, municipal improvements, so roadways, sidewalks. I like to pay it forward. So I like to participate with professional organizations that reach out to elementary school kids, high school kids.
As an educator, I love building that positive relationship with students. So teaching does have its challenges. It can be hard to, end the school day, but still have work that might cut into dinner time or just time with my kids and my wife. I'd never imagined what fatherhood would be like now. It's definitely cooler, but there's definitely the challenges. There's the challenges of making sure they're clothed right, they're fed, and they're getting a good education, and they're just being overall happy.
How I balance work, family, friends, and leisure. I don't. It's part of the struggle bus. I own a coaching business called Mercedes Gibson's Coaching, and I do career coaching with women of color through the lens of wellness. I love doing that work. It's really what I was born to do. Small businesses are part of a healthy, thriving community, and I do not believe we can have a thriving small business community if we lose the middle class.
Over the past 20 years, the middle income in California has shrunk by about 35%. And so what that means is that we're slowly becoming a state that is extremely low income or extremely wealthy. And another really scary fact that came out of our report is that lower middle income home ownership is really shrinking. And home ownership is the way in which most American families build wealth. You can pass that down to your family and they can leverage that as an economic asset to live the type of life and create the economic security that they want.
I've never owned a home, but I've rented, and I've only ever lived in Oakland, actually. And also the financial education that I've been reading and looking at my financial situation, it just doesn't seem like I'm going to be a homeowner. But I do look at all the different programs. Officials or government or whatever, they know there's a housing shortage and a housing crisis, and so they've made different programs, whether that's to rent or to own. I was thinking once I had a certain amount saved up that I would be a candidate to go through one of these programs. I can't tell you how many first-time home owner certificates I have from going to all these trainings that you have to complete a certain amount of trainings to before you apply. The unit that I live in now in East Oakland, I'm the only non-Section 8 unit, and I'm pretty close with my neighbors. It's all Black families. Talking to my neighbors who got the kids, tell them about financial education opportunities. That's what we doing. That's what the middle class is doing, right? But if I can't afford to stay here, I actually worry about who's going to take care of the very poor. I worry about who is going to be at that table making those decisions.
My wife and I, we bought a house. We were super lucky. There wasn't really a program to help us with housing costs, but we were lucky enough that we had a family that helped supported us in buying the home. With that being said, I know so many people, including friends and family, that are just constantly renting because they face those challenges of trying to buy a home. As much as my wife always tells me, we're good, we're solid, we're gonna be okay, I definitely have financial fears. I can't make a home payment, or I can't afford enough money to pay my bills or just overall housing bills.
Right now, I live in unincorporated Santa Ana in a very lovely ADU behind a single-family home. I live with my fiance and with my mom. So my mom is schizophrenic. There was a period where she was completely unhoused. For the longest time, I wanted to fix her. I just thought if I took her to the right doctor, if she was on the right medication, if I just logicked my way back to rationality, she could kind of come back to the person that I remember, the person that I love, the one that raised me. But that's not how mental illness works. I'm looking to have a place of my own, partially because, I want to make sure she's taken care of. I think I managed my finances pretty well. Obviously, I'm trying to save for a house. We've had lots of conversations about this, right? Like where we want to live for the rest of our lives, if we want to start a family, but that feels really hard to attain right now. I have friends and family here. I've lived here my whole life. I would prefer to stay in Southern California. Basically, the last few vacations that we've had were us kind of scouting places to go live. We visited places like Vancouver, Canada. We visited Denver, Colorado.
What makes me mad is that we continue to make policy to preserve the home ownership of people who have benefited from home ownership for the past, 75 to 100 years.
We just don't have the luxury to say that we can leave 13 million middle-income people out of the conversation when it comes to public policy, when it comes to housing policy. We have to help everybody, because when we help middle-income people, lower middle-income people, we're helping to build up the backbone of our state, and we're putting them in a better position to help their families and keep California a thriving economy, a thriving state where everyone belongs and everyone is welcome.
I do not think that we have enough programs that serve lower middle income people.
I think what could support people to stay in California is helping with the cost of living, the cost of insurance.
It's going to take a lot of different types of solutions. My understanding of a community land trust is that it's land that's collectively owned, maybe by a nonprofit or by a group of people. It's leased typically for like 100-year lease. It doesn't have all of those other financial costs.
Ideally, there could be diverse programs that serve a wide range of people.
The biggest barrier to homeownership for, middle-income Californians is being able to save for a down payment while you're renting, and rents continue to go up. And if you are caught in that, too rich to be poor, too poor to be rich, you don't qualify for any type of subsidy or, a break on the rent. And if we want to uplift first-generation Americans, children of immigrants, people of color, having that targeted down payment assistance is the most impactful thing we could do for families to help them achieve homeownership.
Helping middle-income families, lower middle-income families, doesn't mean that we're hurting or taking away from lower-income families. And we need to get away from saying if you don't have a single-family home, you don't matter.
Why I get up every day and do this job is not because of a love of sticks and bricks. It's a love of the people who live in that housing. And so if we want there to be a place and a space for the children that are here today to stay and build their own families, we have to build more housing.
One of my dreams and my hopes for California is for BIPOC communities to organize together, because there's so much intersection.
The many students I've worked with, my biggest hope for them is just to be successful in life, to be in a place where they're comfortable of what they're doing.
Just in general, I want people to be able to thrive versus just survive.